thank you for staying so long. My name is Hannes Bent, and I'm originally from Northern Europe. I've been in the US quite a while, and I started mostly in art school with, whoops, I don't know how this, sorry. Okay, I'll go down there, that works. Okay, so I started with more with paintings because I was fascinated with how we make sense of reality, how we can create symbols in our mind and hold narratives, and yeah, how we can literally construct an identity when when the most truthful thing in a way is that we're always present in the moment. And yeah, I was really fascinated by that, so I created this painting series, which inspired my work now as well. I come back to that later, and created this painting series which dealt with non-symbolic awareness in a way. So you see, you think you see circles, but there's never a full circle, and I made them really life-sized, size of a wall or something, and with non-repetitive colors. So every time you look at something, it's something new. And then I became more engaged in activism, how we can preserve nature, and we relocated hundreds of tires from an ecological catastrophe in the Atlantic Ocean into an art space in Miami in 2012. And that brought a lot of international awareness to that ecological catastrophe. So I tried to find new ways to use art to bring awareness to certain topics. And here it was the ecological catastrophe consists of up to 2 million tires in the Atlantic Ocean. So it's a huge 30 plus football fields of landfill basically. And it's mentioned worldwide, but not a lot of people are aware of it. And it creates, it damages artificial reefs nearby. And there was a video shown there. I skipped that a little bit. Then I initiated and advised a graduate program for the University of Michigan, because I felt it's as easy as an artist, sometimes a creative person, to raise awareness and then just leave the field and, I don't know, take the good away in a way for oneself. But here we literally created a solution for a failed reef, for a functional artificial reef, not for a failed reef. And then I became a visiting scholar and an artist in residency at the University of Oregon. That was from 2013 to 2014 to 2016. I'm still connected to a quantum and nanoscale physics lab there and the neuroscience lab. And what I was focusing on there was transformative technologies, how we can use technologies and the insights from science and mindfulness practices to feel better and to help the planet. Also, maybe a little bit of background about myself. I was diagnosed with cerebral palsy, had a birth trauma, so I couldn't really breathe, and then my parents had to do a very torturous physiotherapy with me. It's called the Voita method. I think it's forbidden now. In every day, the first months of my life, in order for me to learn walking. So I'm internally grateful, but for decades of my life I had depression. I was kind of blaming them, and not blaming them, but didn't have a good relationship with them and with people in my life oftentimes, and I felt like an immediate threat. And then after I solved it with a lot of yoga and meditation, I felt like, oh my gosh, like I don't feel like people as threat in my life. And so what was going on there? And I feel a lot of our subconscious conditioning or formations are happening even without being aware of that, or in trauma in this case, which is even before I can form thoughts in language or something. So I became very interested in how can we resolve this, and how can we use the insights from science, from physiology, from especially holistic practices, because I wasn't able to treat that with any kind of pills or something. But yoga helped me incredibly, and in meditation, Vipassana meditation, I went to Asia and did all kinds of stuff. And then, one of our goals there at the University of Oregon was to contribute to the research in fields of computer science as well, with biofeedback and virtual reality, and neuroscience and psychology, because I couldn't find a lot of studies focusing on neuroaesthetics, which is a field looking at how aesthetics are impacting our neurons or perception or cognition, and then mindfulness research. And I found also that was a little bit under-researched for the benefits of meditation can bring. And I don't know, I don't want to talk about the lobby or the funding behind this, but that was very revealing sometimes. And this was an EEG study in the Vogel lab, a very renowned peer-reviewed lab with peer-reviewed studies. at Vogel now at the University of Chicago, who was about to move out of the UO, so they had this little chamber there with a 20 electrode channel EEG, and were able to access it for studies where we had over 44 subjects for one, where we presented them with visual stimuli and we looked at their brain frequencies, especially alpha and theta frequencies, and we generated a bunch of visuals or collected visuals, so there were thousands of images displayed to them, and basically looking at the correlation between, if there's a correlation between what images you perceive, how you like them, and how they impact us. And surprisingly, with all the billions or trillions or whatever images we perceive all the time and uploaded and stuff, there's actually not a lot of research on how they affect us. So that inspired us further to go ahead with a development. But here you see some data, and especially here you see like when some people like something which is red, then the frontal theta frequency rises. The frontal theta is in the frontal part of the brain here. So theta is oftentimes associated also with, as Alan pointed out, with meditation experience or deep. You also pointed out alpha, but theta is also looked at in many ways. And in here are some data, like really high correlations between liking on a scale from 1 to 5 and theta frequencies, which is very surprising. And then we had other ideas how to merge, how to look at thermal imaging, because we oftentimes, I don't know, we falsely perceive that these are our boundaries, our skin, but we actually, you know, when we touch each other, but we're already interfering with our thermal wavelengths and other frequencies as well. Our heart's electromagnetic field, or heart frequencies extend, I think, 8 to 10 feet out of our body. And so we were looking at, we had one proposal where the infrared cameras would detect two bodies, and then the visuals on the screen would already show them that they're merging. And we're still working on that. And then another, some few data here, the EEG study on the left side, showing the differences between theta brain frequencies. There's a really funny story, because we had the visual stimuli study on during the week, and then on the weekend, one of the researchers I was working with, or the main researchers, she was very skeptical of meditation. So she said, come into the lab, sit down, and meditate in different practices, and then she would average the brain frequencies over, you know, randomly. I would meditate, and then she would pick the same meditation technique and then look at if there's a difference between them. So this is a very controlled study in a way, randomized, to detect if it's, if there's a difference between them. And surprisingly, there was a huge difference, as you can see in the different colors. So there was enough data to study, to then further extend this to an MRI study. I'm going really detailed in this. Maybe it's of interest, you look interested. And so if you have questions, please let me know. I can also just skip and talk about what we've done here, but it's very much related. So then I work with Michael Posner on an MRI study looking at the brain in terms of blood flow. That had interesting results too, and that led actually to the realization of the development of a virtual reality program, because I found, well, if there's also different frequencies of blood flow when we focus on our body, so Vipassana, meditation practice, for instance, or breathing techniques, then maybe you're also like disregarding the body a lot. And of course I was like, it was very helpful for me to learn more about my body, to reconnect with my body more. And so how can we use, when all the, I don't know, a lot of the development and technology goes actually more into the virtual, into the visual field, how can we bring the body back into that space in a way, into technology? And I was at the Oculus conference, it's one of the largest VR companies, and I found there were a lot of male developers as well as people focusing on games. So for me, it's not a surprise, and that the content later on and the technology itself is developed on the focus of what gamers would like to see. And that's, I mean, not that it's a bad thing, but there's a lot of dopamine release, there's a lot of attention and constant stimulation in a way. And from a mindfulness perspective, it's like, oh, I don't really want stimulation, I just want to be in the moment. So how can I integrate that, and how can I add to the field of virtual reality and of any kind of technology, and how can we bring the body more into technology? And one attempt was and is real-time biofeedback and individualized visualization. So not having a static program on a phone or something, but that the phone or the AI or machine learning in a way then learns about the user's preferences and can guide them to a more calmer state. So, and just like simple deeper breathing, I'll explain that more later. So we call it adaptive algorithms or adaptive environments, screen-based environments. And this is the first program. Here it's called Mindful in the beginning. There's a avatar you can meditate with, and it's standing in front of you. We only use sort of a male-looking body, and there's a light going through the body, and then the user is animated to bring awareness to those different body parts too. And another program is where you see a ball. I have that here if you want to try it out later, or you can come back. The next days we're oftentimes here, and we're happy to have you experience it and just share your thoughts, especially regarding the newer programs. There you see a ball, and it would change, it would average the heart rate. And then when you have different thoughts or do different guided breathing meditations or have different kind of sonic environments, binaural beats or something, you can see how your heart rate would change. Especially breathing is very effective, or a certain kind of energy works on oneself. And then when the heart rate goes lower than 10 or higher than 10 or something, then the visuals change dramatically. So basically learning how everything we see in that visual environment, virtual environment, is already kind of our stress levels. And whatever we do to reduce the calm down or stress levels, we can also later on learn in life. So using virtual reality in a way to train ourselves and to go further into this is why I'm here. I skipped the video, I can show it to you later if we have more time. And then also I'm in the field of science of consciousness and stuff, and oftentimes they talk about non-judgmental awareness, non-symbolic awareness, and how can we kind of, I don't know, maybe experience those with virtual reality or with biofeedback. And then to open new possibility spaces to bridge AI with human subconsciousness. And of course there's also the downside in a way when certain companies or institutions learn about it, but I'm very focused on open source and making it very sharing and collaborative. So it can always go in very beautiful hands and who have just very honorable goals to help the planet and people. And then this was a paper we published and we presented at Stanford, a very renowned AI conference. We won Best Presentation Award there. And I got really interested also in Wim Hof. It's and Tibetan tumor meditation. It was called How to Consciously Control Your Immune System. And I learned that, how to warm up my body intentionally with focus and breathing techniques. I think that was last year or the year before, worked with kids. And I showed them a VR program we developed with heart rate biofeedback and an ice bath, and asked them, hey, what do you guys want to do? Like, you want an ice bath or VR experience? And they all chose the ice bath because they were so fast at learning this. It was these little kids from 7 to 12 or something. Okay, some were already my height or so, but they were so fast at learning this. So they were in that ice bath, and they did Tai Chi, and they said when they were starting to shake, they said, oh, maybe let's just do Tai Chi as Hannes told us. And I'm really a Tai Chi expert. I just was standing there and doing a horse stand, a very simple one. But they did it, and they learned really how to calm themselves down when they were shaking. And they went into a cold lake, and then to a much colder ice bath we prepared here. So that got me actually inspired to go more into VR, because from that I took the learning away that technology is just an extension of what we're capable of to induce ourselves, and there's not really a duality. There's technology and there's us. This is like how we develop it as a collective, as mankind, is what technology will be, and what we can learn about ourselves. So if the kids would have preferred VR, it would be like, oh my gosh, the whole body and everything. It's just the visuals are so interesting that it would just be distracting, and the dopamine and whatnot. And what I learned from the breathing techniques, especially the warming up the body, there's also adrenal gland on the kidneys, so we can probably release much more adrenaline with deeper breathing as well. And they've done clinical studies, peer-reviewed, showing that when we do this type of breathing technique I learned there, or other ones, we release more adrenaline than somebody in the first bungee jump. So just to a few minutes of breathing, or they injected people with E. coli bacteria, and everybody in that clinical study was able to fight it just with 15 minutes of the breathing techniques. So it blew my mind, and all the other studies I read in quantum physics or neuroscience, and I really read a lot of papers. It wasn't like as groundbreaking for me as that study. Just with simple breathing, you can fight E. coli bacteria and warm up your body. It's just incredible. And I'm still fascinated by all of this. And then there are different studies coming out now, how slow breathing induces tranquility, that actually when we eat 10 kilogram of fat, 8.4 kilogram of that they found in a study is actually exhaled as carbon dioxide. So we're not storing fat necessarily in our body. It gets, unless we eat too much, of course, but it gets actually out through our lungs, respiration. And then they just found that we have a new role for the lungs, that they actually make blood, a certain blood component gets produced in our lungs. So the lungs are so fascinating that they're literally these wings, this kind of white-looking wings or something, you know, or whatever technology will show them as. And they have these tree-like branches, and I feel oftentimes we only use the upper part, and with deep breathing we literally use the full tree-like structure of our lungs, and we can get much more energy, we can cleanse ourselves, literally from, you know, from fat and whatnot. Also rhythmic breathing affects memory and fear, so a long inhale oftentimes triggers euphoria or memories or fear, so it's really fascinating, and I've worked with hundreds of people because I'm very trained in those breathing techniques. Then I got very interested in finding also from last year that there's $1 million research at Caltech that our primal sense might be detect each other's electromagnetic fields. So, but there's not really, and then we might just forget about it, and kids know about it. They sense each other's electromagnetic fields or so. But we as adults, we're just like, oh, what are they doing? They don't really know what they're doing. But we just numb ourselves, I feel. And so, and if they put so much money into that and they get really profound studies, then how can we actually use modern technology to relearn that and to retrain ourselves? So one of the projects I'm working on is called VR Biofield Project with Louis Geselowitz. He's at Lucasfilms. He's a very experienced visualization artist. Works on the Star Wars movies, on the very top. He worked with Microsoft for many years. Yeah, so we're working on how to basically combine technology, biology, physiology, and yoga, and then how to visualize different biofields or electromagnetic fields. And it sounds very speculative, and it is, and we're okay with that. Here's like one where we combined with Gordy Cherney and Maria Mishurenko. They helped us, or they're helping us integrating different biosensors. And here you see when breathing deeper just expands the chakra, which is kind of speculative. Of course, we don't know. But we want to look at more how to bring awareness to different body parts and combine it with breathing. And then there's a visualization occurring. Oops. Yeah, and then another one, which is a little bit more applied, is the project Seeing Breath, also with Gordy Cherney and Maria Mishurenko, really brilliant people and artists. And we are now combining breath sensor integration with environmental awareness, because we believe in a more embodied and immersive experience of the devastating effects climate change can have, and rising sea levels can lead to more internal awareness as well as actions. So one sensor we have developed right now, I can show you a little bit about the process on the website. We have one sensor here. This was the first sensor we used. There's also the other one we use for the biofields, where the deeper you breathe, there's a little crab and animation, so it's very fun and for people all ages. The more you give the crab energy to lift something up, and then the sea levels will sink and the water will go away. And there are soap bubbles here. There's a VR environment here we're creating right now, and that will be installed in June already in museums and other places in South Florida and Miami. And then here is a platform we used at, we've been using here, the eHouse platform, MySignals. We got that a few months ago, thanks to Andy and Ellen here at the residency. It has up to 15 or 20 different biosensors, and we've been integrating some of them in the virtual reality programs. And we've created a document where we compile different types of studies and looking at the different biomarkers, so we can share that eventually also with a lot of people, that all the research we've been compiling looks at the different theta frequencies, or adrenaline or whatever it is, and then we can look at what type of biosensor is available for that type of research or that type of finding, and how does that contribute in what way to human well-being. And how can we use virtual reality or any kind of sensor or screen-based environment for that experience? So yeah, this is kind of like a longer folder we created for this. And then I want to show you an example of one sensor here. Oh, it's still connected? Okay, great. So there's a easy, whoops. So it even detects the inhale and exhale, and that's just a controller from Google Daydream. So it's just a very simple small device, and it looks at the gyroscope and the accelerometer. So it's a little bit reverse engineering, but it detects deep breathing already very effectively. And we're creating a very fun swim belt right now. I can show you that. So where is it? Yeah, this is a swim belt. And then people would see a seashell, and the seashell would say, hey, come near here, pick me up, and pick up the headphones, and pick up the swim belt. And then they would experience the rising sea levels in the VR program, and the swim belt, of course, has an association, but the swim belt also will then show the breathing patterns. So here's just a screen, of course, as you just saw, but it detects very accurately heavy breathing or slower breathing. I can show you now, actually, on another program. This is more graph-based. So you just see the curve. Here you see and then we could use algorithms in a way to detect the amplitude of it. And my breathing is sometimes a little bit off because I'm so aware of my breath, but usually it's very effective for people who are not so super aware of their breath. And then the differences in a way, like the difference between the height, the peak of the amplitude and the throw, I think it's called, and then looking at like, is there's like a bigger margin, then it's deeper breath, and then we can create more adaptive environments with that also to support deeper breathing. And what we want to actually use this fun art project in a way also to raise environmental awareness, of course, but also to look at how can we integrate a biosensor into any screen-based device. So we just got a new radar sensor which detects breathing non-invasively. I mean, this is also non-invasive, but you still have to put it on your body. And the radar sensor would detect from a few yards, a few meters away, how deep or shallow you're breathing. So, oops. So do we want to learn which type of biosensor and which type of biomarkers, which type of technique in a way is the most supportive? And then if I would have the choice in the future between a phone which has a biosensor integrated and guide me to an environment, a visual environment which supports deeper breathing, I would of course choose that versus one which is I mean, nothing against the programmers, but there's a bunch of programmers sitting at Facebook or Google or something. They design an environment which, of course, affects me in multiple ways. So if that becomes more adaptive, and it would always choose a font size which either makes me perceive something faster when I'm driving or something, or when I'm slower and I'm writing emails, or when I'm going on Twitter, I'm not going on a rant maybe because like the font sizes are calming me down or something, or yeah, whatever it is. So. Looking at adaptive environments and not only focusing on a very brain-centric model, I feel, which is right now in technology, but actually on one which integrates the breath and the body. Thank you. Any questions?